Should religion be taken out of schools completely? Joining me on the line is Michael Nugent, who's the chairperson of Atheist Ireland. Good afternoon to you, Michael. Oh, good evening, sorry.
Good evening.
I do forget what time of the day it is, Michael, at this stage, to be honest with you. Daytime and nighttime. Michael, I mean, what is your main objection? Is it the fact that not only do we have Catholic schools, but now, of course, we have Muslims now applying to have the ethos or the patronage of Islam in schools?
Yeah, it's nothing particularly against Islam, I would say, if it was any religious school that you're talking about. What our position is that schools are funded by the state. And anything that is funded by the state should be for everybody. It shouldn't be just for some people in the state. If you went to a hospital with a broken leg and they said to you, well, I'm afraid we can't treat you yet because we have a whole load of Catholics with broken legs over here that we have to deal with first. Or if you
but the hospitals do have a Catholic ethos. Many of them do.
Yeah, they do.
And they don't refuse to treat you if you're Muslim.
They're the next worst after schools. But in jail, okay, let's take another analogy. If you went to the police to report a crime, and they said, well, I'm afraid we've several Catholics that have had their houses broken into today, so we'll have to wait until we sort that out before we get to you. The idea that state services are treated differently for people based on their religious or non-religious beliefs is the problem. The state should fund schools for everybody that are based on human rights principles, that respect everybody's right to hold whatever religious or non-religious beliefs that they have, and indeed to teach objectively about this is what Catholics believe, this is what Muslims believe, in an objective way, but not to promote any religious belief as being true. Because what that means is that if you take it from a religious person's perspective, a religious person would instinctively know that it's wrong if they sent their child to a state-funded school and the school actively taught their children that there's no God. Now, we don't want that to happen, but they would instinctively realise that's not what schools are for. Schools aren't there to tell religious the children of religious
but Catholics, I suppose Bible-believing Christians will believe that's what schools do teach, that there's no God, because, of course, when we get into secondary schools, we're taught about evolution, we're talking about the Big Bang and science and all that kind of stuff. So they will say, well, actually, you do teach there is no God. We want a balance here, so we want you to also teach that there could be a possibility of a God too.
Well, nobody's suggesting that they shouldn't do that. I would be as opposed to a state-funded religion class saying that atheism is true as I am to them saying that a particularly religious belief is true. They should teach children about the different beliefs and let the children make up their own mind.
And what is the problem? I mean, when you look across the UK and America, for example, I mean, there's massive amounts of waiting lists for children to get into Catholic schools because they believe they get a better education. Because obviously they're fewer and far between than they would be over here, where the majority, whatever it is, 80-something% are Catholic. I think 93% are religious ethos schools in this country. So, I mean, it doesn't seem, the argument is, Michael, I'm not necessarily agreeing with it, is it hasn't done them any harm. I mean, look at me. I went to a Christian Brothers school. I went to a Catholic school. You know, I still don't believe in God. So it didn't do me any harm as a human being.
Yeah, I'm not saying they're doing it very well.
Sorry?
I'm not saying that they're doing it very well, but they do exist. Catholic schools do exist to evangelise. That's their purpose. If you look at...
To indoctrinate, you believe?
Well, to evangelise, to indoctrinate, whatever word you want to put on it, but they exist to spread the Catholic faith. They exist to try to ensure that students that go through their doors come out the other end better Catholics. And Islamic schools are the same. And there's almost there's one particular danger, by the way, with if the Islamic Foundation gets this new school in that area, because
this is in Blanchardstown West in Dublin, yes.
Yeah, because what this is about is where there are areas of greater population growth. They're trying to put in new schools. So the idea would be that would be for
there would be a high proportion of Muslims in that area, probably. I would imagine.
There would indeed. But if the new school is an Islamic Foundation school, then not only will it not allow indeed non-Muslims to come into it, there will be Muslims coming from outside the area into it, and the area will have lost the opportunity of having a new school that everybody can go to.
But at the moment, Muslims go to Catholic schools, okay? A lot of Muslim children go to Catholic schools, and I'm sure they just are excused from religion class. I'm assuming that's what happens currently at the moment. Because they don't have an option, because the majority of, particularly primary schools in this country, are all Catholic. So, I mean, we managed to work that one out, so I'm pretty sure a Catholic could go to a Muslim school. I can't imagine that they would be told that you're not allowed to, because we got rid of the religious barrier, didn't we?
Well, we got rid of the religious barrier for Catholic schools, but minority faith schools are still allowed to discriminate on the grounds of access.
Are they?
There's a little loophole that they left there. So Church of Ireland schools lobbied to say that Protestant schools should be able to continue to discriminate in order to protect the Protestant population. So minority faith schools are still allowed to discriminate on the grounds of access, and that would happen.
Oh, I wasn't actually aware of this. So
there's another thing there, Niall, as well, is that it's not the case that we've sorted it out for Muslims and Catholic schools. Atheist Ireland works alongside the Evangelical Alliance of Ireland and the Ahmadi Muslim community of Ireland. I know you've had a friend of mine, Imam Ibrahim Noonan, on your show a couple of times.
Many times, yes.
Yeah, so he's from the Ahmadi Muslim community of Ireland. They're a minority Muslim sect that are persecuted around the world by Sunni Muslims, which would be the Muslim group that would be open.
He was persecuted on the air one day here by Dr. Ali Salim, who actually told him on the air that he wasn't a Muslim.
Yes, internationally they're literally persecuted, as in murdered, and in Ireland they're discriminated against, and particularly by the Islamic Foundation and the Sunni Muslims that the state seems to go through as the main Muslim.
Well, I suppose that's similar to Christianity, Michael. For people who don't, just for people who don't understand that, and maybe there are people who don't understand, that's similar to Christianity, where you have Catholic and Protestant, and you have all other factions of God-believing people and Bible-believing people who believe slightly different variations of the book.
Yeah, for the all-perfect creator of the universe, God seems to be a very poor communicator, and that he seems to send so many different messages to so many different people.
Well, I think it's the interpretations, unfortunately, that so many people take from a book. I mean, everybody has. It's like any book. If you read a novel tomorrow, everybody has a different take on it by the end of it. Or you watch a movie, everybody has a different take on it. So that's religion is exactly the same. But unfortunately, what happens is it gets involved in sex.
With the added difficulty, though, compared to most novels, that most people don't believe that their favourite novel was written by the creator of the universe and is perfect.
And is real. And they don't really believe Spider-Man can fly from building to building.
But how, I want to go back to that point I was making about when you said that it's kind of sorted in terms of Muslim children going to Catholic schools. We've had complaints, our three groups together, from Muslim children who have been told to go to Mass, who have had to, or else have had to stay outside the Mass with a couple of atheist children. And we've had a case where a Muslim child had ashes put on her forehead on Ash Wednesday, or Ash whatever day it is.
Yeah, that's right. Wednesday,
And they explained that they were a Muslim and this isn't part of their religion. They were told it doesn't matter, here's your ash. So there's a huge amount of presumption and arrogance in some Catholic schools.
I know there was a young Muslim girl was told that she couldn't wear her burqa or hijab or whatever it was she wanted to wear in a Catholic school there recently. And that was last year actually, and that was upheld actually. She wasn't allowed to wear it in school. Now she was only a young girl, 8 or 9 or whatever, 10 years of age. I haven't a clue what age she was, but she was only a young girl, and it does show that sometimes diversity doesn't work too well in schools when it comes to religion.
And there's another point as well. Do you remember a few years ago the government set up a forum on patronage in primary schools, and they were trying to find out what's the best way to deal with that? The Islamic Foundation, which is currently looking for this new school, they made a submission to that calling for more Muslim schools. But at that time, a group of Muslim parents also made a submission saying that they wanted secular schools because they wanted to integrate into the community. So you can't assume that as in any religion, you can't assume what the head guys in the religion, and it's usually
a representative of the opinions of most, yes.
Exactly, yeah.
But you could argue as well, I mean, there's also propositions here for Gael schools too, which are Irish-speaking schools, which in turn discriminate against English-speaking people. You could argue that's the case as well. I mean, there is a lot of, I suppose, hypocrisy in a lot of these different submissions that have gone in for these particular schools. But mind you, it is a good thing that the state is building more schools, because we have to build more schools. Because I know my own daughter's school at the moment, they've had the highest population of the school they've had since it actually opened. So there is a problem. We've a growing population. And to be fair, Michael, the majority of that population wouldn't be Irish, of that new population, the growing population, because Irish people are having less children. So we can only assume the majority of the new population are not Irish, and many of those obviously would come from different religious backgrounds. So I suppose what they're saying is that if we are going to continue to have religion in schools, we're going to have to diversify a little bit.
Yeah, but there's no problem having religion in schools in an objective way in terms of teaching about religions and beliefs in the same way as you teach about history or geography or English or maths. The problem is when the school has an ethos of promoting one particular religious belief as true. That's what you need to move away from. And if you were to move away from that, which is it's a human rights standard as well, that children have a right to a neutral education in terms of that type of philosophical or religious belief. To be honest, I wouldn't care if the person running the school is a Catholic bishop or an imam or a Martian, if they had to to human rights standards and run the school in the same way as you would run any public service, which is do it neutrally, respectfully for everybody in the community, and not promote one belief over another.
Yeah, I mean, I was studying as a sex instance now. What about the new sex education bill? As we can see currently in the UK at the moment, if it wasn't for Muslims, this bill would be passed without a problem. Okay, but I know exactly what they're talking about. The protests which are currently happening across the schools in the UK at the moment over the new sex education bill. The same bill, by the way, that's coming into this country probably next year, end of next year, start of the year, following year. And this bill, of course, promotes, LGBT rights and promotes genders, or 56 different types of genders, or whatever it happens to be. And they're saying if it wasn't for Muslims and Muslim schools and the protests, that would go ahead without a question being asked. And, people maybe don't want that. And that's why they like the idea of having Christian schools, or even Muslim schools for that matter, because I suppose it contains it somehow.
Well, we've an interesting situation here on that area, particularly objective sex education, which is the Oireachtas Education Committee, which is members of all the parties, have recommended that there should be objective sex education in Ireland, in the same way as the Oireachtas Education Committee a few years ago recommended that there should be a change to the patronage system. They concluded that the whole system of multiple ethos and multiple patronage leads to inequality and segregation. But unfortunately, in Ireland, the government, and I'm not particularly talking about today's government, just any government, tends to take the soft option, even when their own parliamentary colleagues, after analysing the issue, tell them that this is the fair way to do it, this is the way that's based on human rights, this is the way that respects everybody. But they'll just do whatever the minimum they can get away with doing, rather than alienate anybody that might potentially vote for them.
Okay. Well, listen, thank you very much indeed, Michael. I appreciate you coming on the air tonight. Thank you very much.